The decision was made far above Evan's rank, in rooms he had never entered and among leaders he had only seen on distant screens. Evan learned about it on a quiet morning, when the space station was still half asleep and the lights were dimmed to soft blue. He stood in a small briefing room, hands resting at his sides, listening as the message was read to him in a calm and careful voice. The words were simple, clear, final. The Interstellar Council had agreed that a formal marriage bond between two worlds was necessary. It was not punishment. It was not reward. It was balance. Evan had been selected to represent humanity in this agreement. His name was chosen because of his calm nature, his clean record, and his history of cooperation with non-human cultures. Evan did not speak when the message ended. He did not raise his voice. He did not ask why. Years of diplomatic training had taught him when questions were welcome and when silence was wiser. This was one of those times. The officer delivering the message watched him closely, perhaps expecting anger or fear. Instead, Evan simply nodded once. "I understand," Evan said. That was all. After the officer left, Evan remained in the room. The door slid shut with a soft sound, sealing him alone with his thoughts. He exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the words settle onto him. Forced marriage. Political bond. Necessary sacrifice. Humans had agreed to many things for peace before. Borders had been redrawn. Resources shared. Traditions set aside. Evan knew the history well. He had studied it. He had believed in it. Peace always asked for something in return. Still, knowing did not make it easier. Evan walked out into the long corridor of the station. The walls curved gently, covered in smooth metal and faint light lines that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Outside the wide windows, stars drifted silently, distant and cold. The universe felt very large in that moment, and Evan felt very small inside it. He walked without destination, his steps slow and steady. Other delegates passed by, some human, some alien. None of them knew what had just been placed on his shoulders. To them he was just another diplomat, another face among many. Evan had never planned to marry this way. He had imagined choice, time, maybe affection. Those ideas felt far away now, like memories from another life. This marriage was not about love. It was about preventing tension, easing fear, and keeping fragile peace from breaking apart. He stopped near a window and rested his hand against the cool surface. The stars beyond did not react. They never did. His mind returned to the words used in the message. Necessary. Stability. Cooperation. These were the words that shaped history. These were the words that moved lives without asking permission. Evan did not feel anger. That surprised him. Instead, he felt responsibility. A heavy, steady sense of it. He had chosen this path long ago when he joined diplomatic service. He had known that personal wishes might one day matter less than the greater good. Still, knowing and living were not the same. Later that cycle, Evan returned to his quarters. The room was simple and clean, designed for rest, not comfort. A small table. A sleeping platform. A window showing the slow spin of the station. He sat on the edge of the platform and let his hands fall into his lap. He thought about Earth. About quiet mornings, open skies, and choices that felt smaller but more personal. He wondered how his family would react when they learned the truth. He wondered if they would understand. The council had not yet told him the name of his future partner. Only that she came from a world with strict traditions and long memory. A world where marriage was a bond of duty, not emotion. In that way, perhaps they were similar. Evan lay back and stared at the ceiling. His thoughts drifted, not wildly but slowly, like leaves on calm water. He reminded himself that this choice was not about him alone. It was about two worlds that did not trust each other enough yet. It was about building a bridge where words had failed. That night, sleep came slowly. When Evan woke, the decision still stood. It did not change with rest. It did not fade. He dressed carefully and returned to his duties. Reports needed review. Messages needed reply. Life continued as it always did. And so did duty. Evan understood then that his life had shifted in a quiet but powerful way. Not with noise or force, but with a simple statement delivered in a calm voice. He did not know what the future held, only that it would no longer belong to him alone. He straightened his shoulders and stepped forward into the station's light. If peace required this, he would carry it. Even if it changed everything. The first time Evan met Isla was in a reception chamber built for balance. The room was neither human nor alien in design. Its shape was smooth and wide, with soft lighting that changed slowly to avoid discomfort. Everything in it was meant to keep emotion low and reason clear. This was where important introductions happened, where reactions were observed and remembered. Evan arrived early. He stood near the center of the room, hands clasped loosely in front of him. He had chosen his clothing carefully, simple and respectful, with no symbols that might suggest pride or challenge. He reminded himself to breathe evenly. This meeting mattered not just to him but to two entire worlds. The doors opened without sound. Isla entered with calm steps, her posture straight and precise. She moved as if she had practiced this moment many times, even if she had not. Her clothing was formal, layered in soft tones that reflected her culture's preference for order and balance. Her face showed no clear emotion, only focus. She stopped a few steps away from Evan and inclined her head slightly. "Evan," she said. Her voice was smooth and steady. "I acknowledge this meeting." Evan returned the gesture. "Isla," he replied. "Thank you for coming." They stood in silence for a moment, measuring distance, waiting for the other to speak. Neither rushed. Both had been trained well. A mediator stood nearby but did not interrupt. This part was meant to belong to them. "To my people," Isla said at last, "this bond is a structure. It exists to prevent instability. Emotional attachment is not required." Evan nodded. "To humans, marriage can mean many things," he said carefully. "But in this case, I understand its purpose." Her eyes studied him, sharp but not unkind. "Then you accept this arrangement without protest?" "Yes," Evan said. "I do." That answer seemed to satisfy her. She relaxed by a small degree, though her posture remained firm. Isla had been trained from birth to follow tradition. Every stage of her life had been planned, measured, and guided by those before her. Choice existed, but only within narrow lines. Marriage, in her culture, was a contract that linked families, roles, and futures. It was about stability, not affection. About order, not desire. She had known this day would come, though she had not known the face of the one she would be bound to. Evan observed her quietly. He noticed how still she was, how controlled every movement seemed. Humans often filled silence with words. Isla did not. She allowed silence to exist without fear. "I have reviewed your records," she said. "You are considered adaptable." Evan gave a small smile. "That's one way to put it." She did not respond to the smile. Instead, she continued, "Adaptability is valued. Emotional excess is not." "I'll keep that in mind," Evan said. They were seated next, across a narrow table. A document hovered between them, glowing softly. It outlined the terms of their bond in clear language. Duration. Responsibilities. Living arrangements. Public conduct. Neither flinched as they read. When they reached the final section, Isla spoke again. "This bond will be visible. Others will observe us. That is expected." "I understand," Evan replied. "I will act with respect." "So will I," she said. There was no warmth in her tone, but no hostility either. Just clarity. When the formal meeting ended, they stood again. Isla inclined her head once more. "Until the ceremony," she said. "Until then," Evan replied. She turned and left without hesitation. Evan remained in the room after she was gone. He felt a strange calm settle over him. The meeting had gone as expected. No conflict. No misunderstanding. Just agreement. Yet there was also a sense of distance, like standing on opposite sides of a wide bridge that had not yet been crossed. Isla, walking down the corridor, did not look back. Her thoughts were steady. The human had behaved as required. He had shown no resistance. That was good. Resistance created disorder. She did not feel excitement. She did not feel fear. She felt readiness. In her private quarters, she reviewed the meeting again. His tone. His posture. His acceptance. Humans were known for emotion, yet this one had shown restraint. That was acceptable. She noted one detail, though she did not linger on it. When he had smiled, it had not been forced. It had seemed natural, brief, and harmless. She did not assign meaning to it. Meaning was unnecessary. Both Evan and Isla believed the same thing as they went about their separate routines. This bond would remain formal. This bond would remain controlled. This bond would remain cold. They did not yet know how fragile those beliefs were, or how quietly they would begin to change. The living space assigned to Evan and Isla was larger than either of them needed, but carefully divided. 2 resting areas. 2 workstations. Shared space in the center that felt neutral and unused. The design assumed distance, not closeness. It assumed formality would remain. At first it did. They followed routine. Evan woke early by human habit. Isla rose at the same time by schedule. They acknowledged each other with brief nods and returned to their tasks. Words were exchanged only when needed. Silence filled the rest. Evan did not push. That alone began to change things. He spoke openly but not loudly. When he explained his plans for the day, he did so without asking permission and without assuming authority. When Isla spoke, he stopped what he was doing and listened. He did not interrupt. He did not correct her tone. He did not rush her words. Isla noticed this. In her experience, others listened only to reply or to judge. Evan listened as if her words mattered simply because she was speaking. That was unfamiliar. One cycle, she finished explaining a complex report and waited for response. Evan nodded and said, "That makes sense. Thank you for explaining it clearly." There was no evaluation in his voice. No ranking. Just acknowledgement. She paused, unsure how to respond. "It was required," she said. "I know," Evan replied. "Still, I appreciate it." The word stayed with her. Appreciate. As cycles passed, small habits formed. Evan prepared food and offered some without comment. Isla accepted it without question. He asked if the light level was comfortable. She adjusted it slightly and said nothing. He noticed and remembered. When Isla was silent, Evan did not fill the space. He let silence remain. That respect mattered more than words. Slowly, she began to observe him when she thought he was not aware. How he spoke to others. How he thanked station staff. How he apologized when he misstepped, even when no one demanded it. One evening, as they shared the central space without speaking, Isla asked, "Why do you apologize so often?" Evan looked at her, surprised but calm. "Because I might be wrong," he said. "Or because someone might feel something I didn't intend." "That is inefficient," she said. "Sometimes," he agreed. "But it helps people feel safe." She considered that. Another time she asked, "Why do humans smile when nothing has changed?" Evan smiled slightly at the question. "Because we're glad to be here," he said. "Or glad to see someone. Even without purpose?" "Yes," he said. Questions came slowly, spaced far apart. Always quiet. Always direct. What is choice to humans? Why do humans value feelings? How do humans remain bonded without obligation? Evan answered each one honestly. He did not simplify too much. He did not hide uncertainty. When he did not know, he said so. Isla listened. She began to understand that Evan did not see her as an obligation. He never reminded her of duty. He never referred to the bond unless required. He treated her as a partner in space, not a condition of peace. That unsettled her, but not unpleasantly. One cycle, she said, "You could demand more from this bond." "I could," Evan said. "But I don't want to." "Why?" "Because respect works better than demand," he replied. That answer stayed with her longer than she expected. Living together changed her belief without force. No rule was broken. No tradition openly challenged. Yet something shifted quietly, like a structure settling into a new shape. Isla realized she was no longer counting cycles. No longer waiting for distance. She was thinking. And for the first time she wondered what she might choose if choice were truly hers. Isla noticed the change one quiet cycle when she realized she no longer felt the weight she had expected to carry. The marriage bond, once defined only by rules and obligation, no longer pressed against her thoughts. It existed, but it no longer felt like a cage or a command. It felt present, steady, and oddly calm. She stood in the shared space, reviewing data, when Evan spoke from across the room. "I'll be gone most of the cycle," he said. "There's a cultural briefing I need to attend. You don't need to adjust your schedule for me." "I know," Isla replied. Then she paused and added, "But return safely." The words surprised her as soon as she said them. They were not required. They served no function. Yet they felt correct. Evan looked at her just for a moment. He smiled, not wide, not dramatic. "I will," he said. When he left, Isla remained standing, aware of the silence he left behind. It felt different from before. Not empty. Just quiet. She thought back to the early days of the bond. How she had counted rules. How she had measured every action against tradition. Marriage, to her people, had always been an agreement written long before feeling. It joined roles, not lives. That belief had shaped her since birth. Now something else had joined it. Evan no longer acted only from duty. That had become clear over time. He still fulfilled his responsibilities, still honored the agreement, but his actions were guided by something more personal. He stayed when he did not have to. He listened even when silence would have been easier. He asked her thoughts, not because protocol demanded it, but because he wanted to know. Isla recognized that change in herself as well. She was no longer bound only by tradition. She still respected it. Still understood its value. but it no longer defined the limits of her thoughts. One cycle, they sat together near the window watching stars drift slowly past. This had become a shared habit, though neither had named it. "If the council released us from this bond," Isla asked, "what would you do?" Evan did not answer quickly. He thought, which told her the question mattered. "I would still want to stay," he said finally. "If you did." Isla felt a quiet stillness settle inside her. "I believe I would," she replied. That was the moment she understood the truth. The marriage no longer felt forced. It no longer felt like something done to her. It was something she was choosing. They did not announce this decision. They did not need to. It lived in small things. In shared meals. In unspoken understanding. In the ease that filled the space between them. They remained together not because treaties demanded it, but because understanding had grown where obligation once stood. And in that quiet choice, two worlds began to change. Their partnership did not change the galaxy overnight. There were no sudden announcements, no dramatic ceremonies, no loud declarations of success. Instead, the change came quietly, carried through reports, observations, and conversations that slowly began to sound different. At first, officials from both worlds studied Evan and Isla out of simple duty. They were symbols of an agreement, nothing more. Analysts measured efficiency, stability, and compliance. They expected formality. They expected distance. What they found did not fit their models. Evan and Isla worked well together, but not in the way expected. They did not rely on authority or strict roles. Decisions were made through discussion, not command. Disagreements were handled calmly, without tension. Observers noted fewer delays and fewer misunderstandings in joint efforts involving them. This confused many. Human observers, already familiar with emotional bonds, noticed something else. Evan was not dominating or leading through force. He was listening. He adjusted. He respected boundaries that were never written into the agreement. His actions showed patience instead of control. Isla's people noticed changes as well. She remained disciplined, focused, and loyal to her responsibilities. Yet her reports included new language. She wrote about cooperation as a living process, not a fixed structure. She spoke of trust as something built, not assigned. Other mixed partnerships were studied next. Some attempted to copy the structure of the marriage agreement, but without understanding, results were limited. It became clear that the bond itself was not the key. The behavior within it was. Humans were soon admired for something unexpected. Not for their ships. Not for their technology. Not even for their adaptability. They were admired for empathy. Empathy was difficult to define but easy to observe. Humans noticed small shifts in tone. They asked questions without demand. They acknowledged others without seeking advantage. These actions created space where cooperation could grow. Isla was asked to speak before a council from her world. She stood tall, calm as always, but her words carried something new. "This bond succeeded," she said, "not because it was enforced but because it was understood." There was silence after she spoke. Not rejection. Thought. Evan was later invited to address a joint forum. He did not speak of sacrifice or duty. He spoke of listening, of patience, and of choosing to stay when leaving would have been easier. Slowly policy shifted. New agreements allowed more room for choice. Cultural training began to include emotional awareness. Marriage contracts across systems were rewritten, no longer treating bonds as cold structures, but as living connections. Evan and Isla remained together not as symbols but as partners. Their relationship was steady, not dramatic. Built on respect, not demand. They had become proof that understanding could change more than laws. Could change worlds.